Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Representative Reagan Paul coming to you once again from my office here in Winterport. And again, I'm not going to talk about the budget. I've been talking about that a lot on my Facebook page and on my X page, but I want to talk to you a little bit about something I noticed was absent from Governor Mills' address the other night, which was energy. And if you would think that if Mills is really proud of her energy plan or policy, which we don't really have either, because a plan needs certainty, and Maine's entire pathway to 2040 plan, air quotes, is predicated on hopes and dreams and wishes and unicorn tears and pretty much everything but concrete facts and evidence. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And part of what Maine wants to do to reach its 2040 goals, whatever they are, is offshore wind development. And in the plan, you need about 3,000 or so megawatts worth of offshore wind to meet these goals. Well, in light of recent events, I'm sure most of you have heard about President Trump's executive order on his first day in office, which effectively halted any new offshore wind leases anywhere in federal waters, but any existing leases that were already leased, those were going to be put under review and can be subject to being revoked. So when California heard about this news, they said, oh boy, this could be a kneecapping and a mortal wound to our offshore wind plans, especially since offshore wind industry in general is heavily dependent on massive federal and state subsidies. And, when Maine heard about the executive order, their attitude was this. This is a direct quote from Dan Burgess at the Governor's Energy Office. Offshore wind remains important to addressing Maine's energy challenges, and the state remains committed to advancing responsible offshore wind, particularly through the research array. So, typically, Maine always follows California's policies, but in this one, California is actually getting it, understanding which way the winds are blowing, so to speak, and Maine's just going to go headlong into this folly, no matter how much it costs you, the ratepayer, taxpayers, or any kind of damage it does to the environment, our ecology, our seafood sector, anything like that. And we also have the third highest energy cost in the nation right now with our existing mix. So they're going to skyrocket if this offshore wind folly actually, materializes. But what I wanted to show you too is that while Maine won't do the right thing for the right reason, because for whatever reason it may be, I think it's because they care more about their donors and special interests and Habib Dogger at the University of Maine than they do about you, the Maine people. They don't care about the suffering that they've been pushing on you for their own goals and desires, I guess. So really, Maine's not going to do it on their own. We're going to have to rely on the federal government to do the right thing and on the states. So our neighbor to the south, New Hampshire, is actually introducing a bill. It's going to have a public hearing on February 3rd, and it's House Bill 575-FN, and in effect, what it does is the bill prohibits offshore wind energy infrastructure or development in New Hampshire, and any kind of relevant agency or committee that's anything to do with offshore wind effectively is ending in New Hampshire if this comes online, if this bill passes. And if you look later in the bill, I find it interesting that they say specifically that they're preventing the development of offshore wind energy in its territorial waters and ensuring that no other state may bring such infrastructure into New Hampshire either via maritime or over land routes. So I think it's gonna be very interesting if this bill actually passes, because what this could mean, in theory, is that even if Maine is foolish enough to keep going forward with its offshore wind fantasy, how would we even transmit it to the rest of the states if we can't get through New Hampshire? So that'd be another massive expenditure to try to get through Massachusetts. But anyways, we're going to go forward with that. I want to go back just briefly to California. When they said that offshore wind, the executive order that Trump did with offshore wind was a mortal wound to the industry, that doesn't mean it's dead right now. It means it will be. So Maine needs to be flexible in its plans, because there's no certainty when it comes to offshore wind, and a plan needs certainty. And when I asked Dan Burgess, who came before the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee that I sit on a couple of days ago and talked about Maine's energy plan, how to get to 2040. And I asked him about offshore wind, and I just asked him, how in the world can offshore wind be part of Maine, one of the pillars of Maine's energy goals to 2040, when the executive order came out for Trump. And again, the existing lease areas in Maine, in the Gulf of Maine, for those of you who don't know, there were 8 lease areas up for bid in October 2024. Only 4 of them were actually bid on, and those 4, that total about 440,000 acres, only got bid for about $50 an acre. Okay, so that's not a ringing endorsement from the private sector that they really want to invest in this folly anyway. I mentioned that part, mentioned that there's no federal money coming from the Trump administration for offshore wind development. The state's broke, and even if we wanted to build the port, we'd have to drain the entire rainy day fund for that. The power purchase agreements before the Maine PUC have not been settled, and that's been taking a long time, and there's no guarantee of that. And all these other factors going through this, there's no certainty. So I asked him basically all those things, but why would Maine invest in an industry that is hanging on by its fingernails when we should be pivoting to something that's best for the Maine ratepayer and the environment, and shifting to what this Maine energy plan actually says is that we're changing from a renewable portfolio standard to a clean energy standard, which is a very significant difference, because they're changing it from straight renewables, solar and wind, to opening up to clean energy, which is, for me, I define clean, and other states define clean as nuclear, natural gas, hydro. I asked him, why would you invest in offshore wind when we have all these other options available to us? And in essence, he said to me, well, this is really just a short-term, blip we have to get through. Our permitting is going to take a while anyway. It's going to be close to 2030 anyway, so we can kind of look forward from there. And I said to him, well, there's no guarantee this is a 4-year blip. You have no idea what's going to happen in Washington, D.C., who's going to be the next president. This could be a 4, 8, 12-year gap. So what are you going to do? We need to pivot. And when I talked about the renewable portfolio standard versus clean, I asked him to define what clean energy means. And you would have thought I asked him for a kidney or something. He was so pained trying to explain what clean. He kept saying, whoa, we're gonna increase RECs, we're gonna increase our output, we're gonna turn up solar and onshore wind. And again, it's like you can somehow increase the amount of sunlight we have and control how much wind we're gonna have. It was just ridiculous, and it shows we have no plan. And we have no leadership that is dedicated to what's best for the people of Maine. And I just wanted to reiterate that with you all, that the people in Augusta right now are not on your side, in those who are in power. They care more about University of Maine and Habib Dogger and giving him millions and millions and millions of dollars to develop a technology, Volturnus platform, that has failed federal testing and has been shown through the Department of Energy Flow-In program that it is not commercially scalable. Okay? And there's also been leaked recently, in the past couple of weeks or so, that there's a secret quarter scale model test going on in Trenton, going on with the University of Maine and Habib Dogger, that no one knows about, which again, I have a lot of problems with, especially since it's your public money and there's no transparency. I might have to do another video on that whole debacle anyway. But I just want to encourage you that we're on the right path when it comes to stopping offshore wind, but it's not over. We don't have a Republican-led legislature like New Hampshire does. So I would love to introduce something like this and actually have a chance of passing. But if it passes in New Hampshire, that could really impact us. So I'm looking forward to see what happens with that. But what we have done in Maine, I have introduced a couple of bills that will help in the energy department that I'll do a video on later, so put a pin in that. But I also wanted to announce that I'm excited about something today, is that I released a letter that I had written that I got a bunch of co-sponsors from my Republican legislators down in Augusta. We sent a letter to President Trump encouraging him to expand upon his first executive order, to not just halt new leases and review the existing leases. We encouraged him to nix it all, stop it all, and save our oceans, save our ratepayers, save our environment, save our fishing industry, our national security, and all of these things together. And I I'm really encouraged by it. I think it came out well. I really am interested to see if Trump will get it and what he does with it, if he gets it. And I'll keep you apprised of what happens there, and I'll keep you apprised of what happens with the New Hampshire bill, and I'll keep you updated anything that goes on in the legislature regarding offshore wind. I have a couple of bills coming down the hopper that I think you'll be excited about. But if you know of any other bills around the country that have anything to do with offshore wind and stopping it or encouraging the president to intervene, I'd love to hear about it. So message me and let me know. If you have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out, drop something in the comments or private message me. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, thank you so much.